Welcome to this month's series on mental emotional first aid, where we're talking about how we can walk in the fullness of who we are designed to be in order to walk in the fullness of our purpose. So if you are just checking in with me, if you would click that subscribe button, I want you to be caught up on all the episodes. This is actually episode 3. So if you haven't seen the other episodes, you're going to want to go back and watch them. You can go ahead and finish this one first. That's okay. But don't miss out on episode 1 and episode 2, where we talked about how to form a habit, the importance of understanding how to break a habit or change a habit, and also on how to be self-aware and how we can self-discover what we're thinking and how we're feeling in a moment. Also, I would recommend that you get my book, Enforcing You, where I really outline in a lot more detail all of the steps that we are walking through in regard to creating space in that habit and beginning to intentionally process what we're thinking and what we're feeling in a particular moment. So today we're going to be talking about our emotions and how our emotions are like road signs and how they navigate us to a destiny if we allow them to. I know a lot of times we think our emotions are negative. A lot of times we dismiss emotions. A lot of us don't like to deal with emotions. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and so our greatest fear is emotional pain. But today we want to really harness and understand the power of emotions and how our emotions actually have a message behind them and they navigate us to a core belief. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about the power of core beliefs, identifying core lies or limiting beliefs. But today we've got to learn how to really allow our emotions to navigate us to a destiny. So let's talk about emotions and how they are like road signs. Now, if you and I were traveling somewhere together, we would look at road signs to help navigate us to that destiny. Now, if we saw a road sign and we got out and we sat by the road sign, or we just stopped at the road sign, or we began circling around the road sign, we would never get to the destiny. The road sign is important, but it is not our stopping point. It is not the final destination. So I want you to remember that when we're talking about emotions, that our emotion is something that navigates us to a destination. But what happens is one of two things. One, we either ignore our emotions, we totally don't even pay attention to the road sign, and we miss a final destiny that often God is trying to navigate us to so that we will self-discover something about what we believe or what's going on in our own heart or in our own mind. Or 2, we get out and we sit by the road sign, meaning I sit in my emotion, I talk about my emotion, I circle around my emotion. We often kind of say that our emotion is like a stuffed animal, and sometimes we like to pass our stuffed animal around and we want everybody to pet the kitty, and we want to talk about our emotions, we want to tweet about our emotions, we want people to jump into our emotions. Well, if we only let our emotions become a stopping point and we really sit in that spot, then we're never going to get beyond the emotion and really begin to discover what is the root behind the emotion. So let's decide that we're not going to ignore our emotions, but let's also decide that we're only going to look into our emotions long enough for the purpose of navigating us to a message behind the emotion. So our emotions play a big part in helping us identify a core value or a belief, which often are lies that limit us. That's why they're so important. We want to know what is limiting me from moving forward into my fullness and keeping me stuck in this spot. However, emotions, when they are rooted in truths, can actually be the passion that stirs us into action. The important thing is to understand is that emotions are not bad. Emotions are a part of our God design. All right, so remember that emotions are a part of our God design. We are designed to be emotional beings. Give me an amen in the comment if you agree with that, But we need to recognize that God has designed us with a soul realm, and in there is our feeler, and we are designed to feel, okay? So we discussed in episode 2 the importance of being able to take up our emotions, harness our emotions. If you remember, we talked about Mark chapter 16 and the ability to take up serpents. The problem with our emotions often is instead of learning how to harness them or navigate them, we are harnessed by them or navigated by them. Okay, so let me give you an example. I am personally a very passionate person. I am passionate about what I do in regard to helping people maximize their fullest potential. But this passion is often fueled by what I call a godly anger, meaning God shows me something about somebody. He shows me their potential. I have an understanding of the fullness of our God design. So somebody who's struggling with depression, somebody who's struggling with unforgiveness, somebody who's struggling with apathy, just has no guidance, no direction in their life. They have no unction. They have no motivation. I feel vexed by that. I feel a godly anger, and that anger in some regard makes me passionate about coming alongside those people and helping them move beyond that limiting belief, whatever it is, and into their fullness. So that's just an example of how emotions can be good if we learn how to A, recognize them. Remember, we want to become self-aware of our emotion. And B, we want to learn what they are revealing about who we are and allow ourselves to harness them so that we can be motivated and stirred up by the emotion within us. So our emotions often are what become our source of passion and become our source of motivations. So our emotions help us self-discover. They help stir us up. They help motivate us. And this is all a part of learning to be self-aware when we're recognizing an emotion in a minute. Now, a lot of times we've heard it called emotional agility. We've heard it called emotional intelligence. Call it what you want. It's just part of the process of self-discover. We talked in episode 2 about how self-awareness is one of the #1 predictors of success. So now we're learning to not just feel, recognize what we're feeling, define what we're feeling, define what we're thinking, but we want to go beyond that and into identifying the message behind it. So I want you to take a moment, grab a piece of paper, grab a pencil, push pause if you can, if you want, but I want you to write this down, okay? I'm going to say it very slowly so that you can capture this. Behind every emotion, there is a message. Okay, write that down. Behind every emotion, there is a message. Now, remember, I talked about how your emotions are like road signs, and they are going to navigate us to a final destiny. So your emotion is not the message. I'm going to say that again. Your emotion is not the message. That is so important because a lot of times we get stuck and we think the emotion of depression is saying you are depressed. The emotion of anger is saying you are depressed. Listen, you can be a feeler without becoming the feeling. So your emotion is not the message. It is navigating you and pointing you to a message. So we have to look into the emotion long enough in order to get to that message, because that message reveals something about what you believe. It reveals a core belief about you. Okay, so this is so important. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about the power of your core beliefs. Once we have identified core lies, once we have identified limiting beliefs, we're going to be talking about the power and how those navigate our lives if we don't learn how to recognize what those core beliefs are. But for today, you just wrote down behind every message behind every emotion, there is a message. And that message reveals something about what you believe. Okay, so let me give you a practical example because I'm an example girl. I like examples of what this looks like. So I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation. So let's say you are upset because your coworker is late for a meeting with you. You worked hard to get all your work done. You prioritized this meeting and you showed up on time. But now he or she is late and you find yourself growing agitated and feeling fussy about the person. Okay. So let's go back to step 1 when we talked about defining what we're feeling in a moment. This is a perfect opportunity for you to capture, to be able to practice self-awareness. What am I feeling right now? Okay, now it may seem obvious to you, but for some of you it may not be so obvious. And you may be like, well, I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling agitated. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling disrespected. Maybe some of you might feel disappointed. It really just depends on that core belief that we're trying to navigate ourselves to. If you are a male, a lot of times you feel agitated and angry more towards the person who has offended you. If you are a woman, a lot of times you tend to feel more discouraged, depressed, disappointed in situations, and your anger is more inward and towards yourself. Now, those are just generals. It's not always the case. I understand I deal with a lot of males who are feelers, and I deal with a lot of women who are not feelers. So that's not always the case, but generally speaking, I can typically say that is generally the case. So let's go to step 2. So we've taken time to define, what am I feeling? Let's say you've said, okay, I feel angry, or I feel disrespected. Or maybe you're somebody who just feels disappointed, or you feel discouraged about your day now. Step 2 is identify, okay? So step 1 was define. Step 2 is identify. If you have a piece of paper, write that down. I guarantee you these steps that I'm walking you through are key in helping you be more emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent, emotionally agile, mental and emotional first aid. Call it what you want. I want you to walk in the fullness of your mental and emotional health. So step 1 is define. Step 2, we're going to identify. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Here's the important question. What is the message I feel is being sent from this emotion, or that I feel like is being triggered by this emotion? So let's pretend like the emotion is anger. What is the message behind the anger? The message could be, my time is not as valuable as this other person's. That's the message that I'm hearing in my head. Or maybe the message I'm hearing is, I guess I'm just not important to prioritize as they are to me. Or maybe the message you're hearing in your head is, I'm just not very valuable. Or this person doesn't consider my time or my presence valuable. I'm unimportant. Okay, so I know this sounds like, oh gosh, that sounds dramatic. But if we really take time to allow ourselves to be navigated beyond the emotion, behind every emotion, there is a message. Now, I'm giving you an example from a quote unquote negative side. Now, no emotion in and of itself is negative. It's the message behind the emotion and what we do with the message that we get into trouble. So we're going to be walking through this entire process. But for today, we're talking about discovering that message behind the emotion. An opposite example would be somebody remembers, they show up on time, they're early, and they bring me a gift, and I feel excited, I feel prioritized, I feel valued. And the message behind that is, I am valued, I am loved, I am prioritized. Okay, so that's just giving it to you from a positive side. But even in positive situations, learning how to practice what am I feeling right now, defining what I'm feeling or thinking, and identifying what is the message behind that emotion, those are key practices in becoming very quick at doing this and being self-aware of your own emotions and your own thoughts and moments. And this is all a part of you walking in the fullness of mental and emotional health, wholeness, wellness, and being able to minister your own mental and emotional first aid to you. Look, I'd love to come alongside you as your counselor, but I would love for more than anything for you to be able to minister to yourself. That's why I'm trying to set you up to succeed here. All right, so now I hate to push the pause button on this, but I'm going to push the pause button on this because we're starting to peel back the layers and discover our why behind our feelings and really press into core beliefs, values, which, by the way, are not always true. So we're talking about trying to discover even core lies that we struggle with in our own mind, which become then limiting beliefs that keep us from moving forward in the fullness of our purpose. So before we end this, let's take a moment to practice what we have learned. So we've been doing this interaction in some of these episodes. So I want you just like we did in episode 2, I want you to take a moment and take some inventory. Relax and think about what am I feeling or what am I thinking right now in this moment. Now, take a moment if you would. If you need to push the pause button, you can do that. And then come back and put in the comments the one feeling or the one thought that you came up with, and put that in the comments for me. Okay, so we're just kind of practicing. I want you guys to start interacting with each other on what you're discovering about core feelings, core thoughts. What we find a lot of times is a lot of us struggle with the same emotion over and over and over again. And again, then it's going to navigate us to that same stinking message over and over and over again. And when we identify what that message is, now you are empowered to begin to start making some decisions about what you want to believe and who you want to be. Okay, so this is key. All right, so now, what message are you hearing in that emotion or that thought? Okay, now this may take some time because you haven't been used to doing that. Asking yourself, why am I feeling this? What is the message? If this emotion could speak, what would this emotion be saying to me? These are the ways we really begin to discover the message behind the emotion. Okay, so take some time. Really, don't just listen to this. I want you to really engage in this. To the same degree that you take concepts and you put them into action is to the same degree that you will walk in your fullness and in your healing. All right, so you're doing so well in learning how to widen the gap on your habitual thinking, because remember, we're talking about creating space between the trigger and the reaction so that we can become responders and not reactors, living our life more intentionally with emotional intelligence, the ability to navigate our thoughts from one to the next with power, authority, the ability to harness our emotions and be able to navigate them and allow our emotions to stir us up, make us passionate, but not control us. This is what I want for you. All right, make sure you join me in our next episode as we delve deeper into how to identify your core beliefs and your core lies. All right, make sure you leave me a comment, like this, share it, and don't forget to push that notification bell so that you don't miss when the next episode comes out. All right, you guys, this was your lesson today on understanding the power of your emotions and the message behind your emotions. Remember, enforcing purpose, it starts with you.